I've always loved Wes Anderson, his colors, his wonderful witty scripts, his symbolism, and as we all cannot forget, his noteworthy cast that has become something of a cliche on its own. His movies are unforgettable and something of a painting to just gaze at for an hour and a half. Anderson has always been impeccable at his choices of cinematography, with something as memorable as the Royal Tenenbaums or as rich as the Grand Budapest Hotel. He has, and to me always will be, an unrivaled director of film as a whole, and one of the directors at utmost quality of his time. He will undoubtedly be remembered with his iconic crew he administers in arguably some of the most moving pictures of the 2000s and the late 90s. While we can argue his debut feature, Bottle Rocket, is lesser than something like Rushmore, his next feature, technically, but we can all agree that he always manages to have amazingly charming films every time a movie comes out by him, and at brisk paces at that. With people like Robert Yeoman, Noah Baumbach, and Jason Schwartzman, time and time again, he proves again his worth for his work and the need for more people of his artistic integrity. In the public eye, he really is a fascinating artist. He's not fascinating like someone like Andy Warhol or Harmony Korine for their ballsy artworks. The fascination I get from this is how he can get together with other people with wondrous smarts and just plain awesome people who can put out amazing movies at an extremely brisk pace of every 2 to 3 years, and still a good chunk of them are commercial successes. While arguably he is narratively growing in quality, he is without a doubt growing in technical quality. I want you to just go back to Bottle Rocket, which in my opinion is a great movie, but it looks boring and uninspired, and then only 4 years later he makes the Royal Tenenbaums, and then the movie the movie that I'm going to talk about is absolutely no exception of everything I've talked about in this movie. Alright, you guys are ready for me to finally talk about this movie after sucking up to Wes Anderson for how long? But here you go, here's my thoughts on The French Dispatch. To start off this review, I just want to say that I don't exactly know my rating for this movie, but if you want to see my letterbox, it should be in the description. But this movie is, to put in the words, if that's even possible, is a triumph, to say the least. Yes, now, I think every one of his movies are great, even Bottle Rocket, but I feel like this movie redefined my entire opinion on Wes Anderson as a director. While I will say I did see this in the cinema at a really great theater, so I really do feel that I saw the movie in the best quality I possibly could, so I might have some bias. I mean, to call this movie a drama would be an ill-mannered statement, because to me this movie is an imaginative, rich anthology tour de force with a pound of comedy and stirred together, and you got this movie. While the Grand Budapest Hotel can be something to admire, I think this is something to rave and rant to be acclaimed 4 hours on end. On something like this, or I don't know, I just really do think that this movie is better than the Grand Budapest for some reason. It's just magnificent in its portrayal of prison in the first story. While yes, it's definitely not realistic in any way, shape, or form with the art selling and stuff like that, but I think it's one of the funniest scenes of this birth of a decade. Adrian Brody deserves 4 Cannes nominations and 4 speeches and an implanted montage of every scene he appears in. He's unquestionably better than he was in Darjeeling Limited. No disrespect to that performance, it's still really great. I just love how vulgar he is when he's talking to Benicio Del Toro's character, and he's just screaming and just comedy gold of just literally a fight and an hour of thinking. He admits his defeat and gives him a side-splitting hug that is unforgettable. His impeccable performance that I couldn't help but laugh at in a strict movie theater is just monumental in his career. Everything he does, from his posture to his close-up shots, I just find absolutely hysterical, and just like an own person that should be a thing. I just find absolutely hysterical in so many different ways. He's just so riveting with his enchanting performance that I would go back and watch it all over again. To me, one of the best performances in the first story is Benicio Del Toro. He just has this stale, bored, bare look that I can't get enough of. I love how he growls every time he's angry, and he just puts on this perfect Wes Anderson performance that I can admire from many angles on end. I really loved him in Fear and Loathing, so I was really excited to see this movie. The trailer was really exciting and already looked like something as grand as the Grand Budapest Hotel, and I couldn't help but wait to see it. Just the cast alone blew me away more than the Grand Budapest Hotel, and then it got delayed countless times, and then it suddenly came out, and now I saw it and it was amazing. Maybe it's too early to say that, but I really do love this movie wholeheartedly, and I really hope that there are other movies that could up this movie this year, because the colors, man, I almost cried during that sequence with Timothy Chalamet, more movies with Wes Anderson, and Linya Kodri, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, you're a good actress in the movie, on the motorcycle how beautiful it was. I've never seen anything so interesting and fun to follow, yet so fast-paced, like Billy Wilder's 1, 2, 3. And I just, oh my god, the colors were more than beautiful, man. Like, Grand Budapest Hotel doesn't have shit on this movie, and I'll put a screenshot up here. Yes, I put it in bold because of how bold that statement is, but I really do believe it. To me, this is one of the best movies he's made since Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I know what you're thinking, wow, is that a hot take? But seriously, this movie is absolutely wonderful. I mean, to me, this movie is just Wes Anderson trying to make an homage to everything he wants in a movie, from the casting of the amazing Frances McDormand, who I hold so dearly as one of the best actresses of the 21st century, and I will guard that opinion with my life. I just don't know how to express to you how great the movie is. Whatever, cool, it's just the way he uses the rundown place and then adds this gorgeous cinematography and beautiful people to make it even more emotional somehow and make them more likable and stuff. And like the second story, with it being more dramatic and they play chess through radio for freedom and their beliefs, it's really just to put this movie into like one sentence. This movie is Wes Anderson's most moving film to me. Well, yes, Darjeeling Limited is definitely up there. I think that movie's more relatable to me, but we could argue that for hours. From how different it is and just so quirky in all of the different but perfect ways I really love. That was like the only bad thing with Life Aquatic, and then when you see him do something even more original and inspired and special, it really blows you away, especially in the cinema. I also just adore the love story between Benicio Del Toro and Lisa. You get the point. When they're just lying there in the comedic genius of the execution scene, and then the scene when we first meet them is awkward, but also something you can't help but laugh at. Oh, and who could forget Saoirse Ronan's performance as a showgirl is absolutely marvelous when she's talking to that little kid who's been abducted, and I really do love it. Oh, it also slipped my mind, and how I don't know, but Tilda Swinton is magnificent and deserves a Palme d'Or on her own, because when she's just like being so crude on that stage and just out of nowhere you see her naked on the screen and she's like, oh, wrong side, and I just love how well she displays how terrorized this woman really is, and it's disturbingly hilarious. I really can't help but admire this cast, as you could tell, this with even like Christoph Waltz popping in out of nowhere, which it just makes me love this movie more and more and more and more and more. Now I would like to talk about the Kidnapping Story, which I really do love. It's just so creative, and I love the character of the cook and the car chase and the out of nowhere wrestler, and there's Edward Norton, and then there's animation. I mean, for God's sake, you can't tell me this is not climactic and more than exciting. Just that animated scene is absolutely amazing and fun and just magical. I mean, let's face it, guys, this is the best movie of 2020. And maybe of the 2020s in general, to me, okay, but I maybe it's just me, but I really just do adore this movie in so many ways. It's definitely one of Anderson's best films yet, and maybe I'm biased, but I really do think that this movie really is a masterpiece and should long hold the coveted crown that will hopefully soon be hard to best of the movie of the 2020s. This movie really is more proof that Anderson is one of the best directors of his time and should be admired and loved for years and years to come. I really adore this movie, and I will give it a 10 out of 10.